Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all. We're here today with the amazing Tanya E Williams. And thank you, Linda, for writing in kindness is the word. Here at Fictionary, kindness is everything. We believe it opens up your creativity. And we're going to talk today to Tanya E. Williams, who is an absolutely fabulous writer. And she's going to talk about her book. Let me introduce you to her. And if you haven't seen her website, then please do pop along and have a look because it is amazing. It's here. I'll pop it into the chat. TanyaEWilliams.com. Okay, so Tanya, a writer from a young age, Tanya E. Williams loves to help a reader get lost in another time through the magic of books. History continues to inspire her stories, and her insights into the human condition deepens her character experience and propels them into the journey. Miss Williams' favorite tales speak to the heart, making them smile, laugh, cry, and think. And Tanya actually with this book that we're going to be talking about today, Growing into Greatness, actually came through the Fictionary method. And I'll let her talk about that in a second. And it's really, really exciting. And I thought, I've read it all before, but I'm just going to have a quick little read just to get up. And then I'll go back to do some work. Don't tell Christina I got lost again in the story because it's so amazing. It's absolutely marvelous. So if you haven't got it, it's Growing into Greatness. I think Robinette's got the paperback there because Robinette was the Fictionary editor and Tanya came through. So let me get started on the questions here, Tanya. It was first published July 18th, I believe.
That's right.
And how did that go?
Well, publishing day was fun, always is fun because that's when the book becomes, it is no longer your own and becomes readers' experience, and they bring with it all of their life experiences. So it's always fun to watch what they take away. And so as the reviews start to come in and everything like that, it's great. It was a very soft launch. I didn't do a ton. I've done big launches in the past, and they're very exhausting. And so I do enjoy sort of the subtle, quiet launch. And of course, I met with family and friends at a vineyard and had a little picnic and celebration. So that was super fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so lovely. Hopefully we'll be able to get to see photographs in the community if you wanted
Oh,
to share
yes,
any
I
of
could do
those.
that. Yeah.
That would be lovely. Okay, so first question, what inspired you to write Growing into Greatness?
The city. So the area, the region of Napa, basically. The story itself had been rolling around my head for probably about 4 or 5 years. And I often start stories with a location in mind. And then I sort of evolve. And as I think about the location, visit the location, because you have to go to Napa if you're going to write about Napa. Italy is on my list. So let's fingers crossed. So once I'm sort of immersed in the region, then the characters start to talk. And Sofia was with me right from the get-go. I knew she was strong. I knew she was stubborn, determined. And I was like, but for women of that era, the story goes sort of from 1930 to 1960, and the two storylines, the past and the 1960s present day, sort of wind together and meet up. And for that era, that was not always the case for women. So that's kind of what got me started. I will say I've learned a lot about wine since, and I used to be only a white wine drinker, and now I drink all kinds, and I can tell the difference. And I've learned the sort of the art and the science to it. And at first I told my husband that it wasn't that I didn't like red wine; it was that I didn't like cheap red wine. So that's how I started. And I met wonderful people in Napa, and it just continued on.
So your creation is setting first, then character, and then plot. Is that how it comes to you? So you see it from those super groups down?
Usually,
That's
Usually,
amazing. I find it
yeah.
so fascinating the way different people's ways of creation come about. And then to choose wine, which is so exciting,
Yeah.
isn't it? So that you have to do the
Wow.
research on
Yes.
different. I've been to Napa once before, and it's beautiful there. It's
It
absolutely
is.
glorious. So yes, so on my next story, I'm going to have to definitely make sure I start with setting. I mean, fairy
Right.
worlds, I have to go through lots of
Ah,
scary places to get into them. I think I might
yeah.
stop with that and start going with somewhere exciting. That's really inspirational.
Wow.
So let's get to what personal experiences do you have that shaped the book's core messages?
What's interesting is most of my novels are come from a question of something that I'm trying to understand. And the biggest question I had was when I sort of started doing the research was, how did a vineyard survive in Prohibition?
Nice.
Because so often we talk about bootleggers and we talk about hard alcohol and whiskeys and bathtub gin and all those things, but we don't really talk about vineyards and how Prohibition actually took out the majority of the Napa Valley vineyards. And I there was one winery that opened its doors in 1920, and that was just like, what? Why? How? And what were you thinking? Kind of, it was going through my head. And so as I dug into the research, that was at the heart of it. And when I went and interviewed vineyards, they were absolutely the most gracious people ever and the most humble individuals. The I had different answers from each one of how they survived Prohibition, and I was fascinated by that. It was so cool just to have some of them, you know, skirted the law, some of them plowed under their fields and they grew things like walnuts and fruit trees, and some of them did sacramental wine, which was licensed by the Catholic Church, and it was a big process. You had to have a priest in charge of your operation in order to be working under the sacramental wine license. But what's even more fascinating is the amount of growth in sacramental wine. The demand for it grew significantly, but masses didn't. Attendance at mass didn't actually grow that much. So the churches were in some ways working with the black market, but were also trying to, because they could legally store it, they were trying to help vineyards stay afloat. So there's always going to be some aspect of nefarious activity going on, but there was a real push to help these families who found themselves, their livelihood, their land worthless, all of these things
Yes,
at
because
risk.
vines take a while to get going, don't they?
They
And
took
then to
five
plow it
years.
under, my heart's breaking. I mean, I know we've got the emotional
Yeah,
side of, but that's so much effort has gone into building up a vineyard. And then, I mean, you've got
absolutely.
absolutely fantastic stakes there, haven't you? Just brilliant.
That's
And
it.
so it's just
Yeah.
already built into your story and absolute natural there. So, um, so you're a very prolific writer, which is very exciting here at Fictionary to chat with and work with. Um, how did your own journey to greatness influence your writing process?
Because this was such a passion project for me, I had tried to get it going and published for probably the last 2 years. And I kept running into stumbling blocks. And I decided that I needed to have two editors. It was the only way it was going to work timeline wise. And that was the trigger for me, the switch. And I ended up, it wasn't for the faint of heart, I will say that. It was a lot of long days, long nights when you're trying to write. This is the first year I'll publish 2 novels in 1 year. And that was an immense undertaking, but I cannot, the second one's in proofreading now, so I know that I've actually done it, and it's fantastic. And now that I think I've got the hang of it, I will be able to continue that pace. So,
Wow, that is fabulous.
but
We will be getting on to your experience with standalone versus series, but we won't get there just yet. Um, because let's talk about your target audience.
yes,
And I know that you know your audience very well
I
from our
do.
conversations and everything else like that. But if you go on to Amazon.com and read some of the reviews of Growing into Greatness, they're brilliant. And obviously there's lots of people who love wine. But you've also got people in there who are absolutely I love, this is just quoting from one of the reviewers, I love all things Tanya E Williams. And then obviously 5 stars and amazing as the title. But that must be so inspiring when you get reviews like that from your target audience. So you must know them.
Yeah,
Who
I
is your
do.
primary or target for this book audience?
I'd say that my target audience is primarily women, aged about 40 up, and they tend to be very prolific readers. So they read, that is part of their lifestyle. It's ingrained in them. They tend to be very educated, and they like the challenge of the emotions that they could be faced with, understanding that it may not always be what they would do or what they would like or their experience, but their minds are open to understand that they can learn something about how somebody else might handle a situation. And that's always a good thing, because as an author, you write stories and some of your characters aren't nice. And oftentimes readers think that that's like a reflection of you. And of course, that's not the case. But for some readers, it's harder to separate that out. Whereas I find my audience is very in tune with what they're there to sort of experience and embrace. And the most the comment that I love the most is when they say that it was like a movie in their head. And I go, yes, from your lips to Netflix ears.
Yes, it is your setting, but you start with the setting when you create, and it carries on through. I do recommend that everybody reads Growing into Greatness, because the setting is just so evocative, and you really are drawn into there. It's lovely, and you do know your readers very well. So that's something that we all should learn from Tanya, is know your reader, and you'll get fabulous reviews. Um, so you know what your core message is, and you know how you got there. What do you hope is it the connections with learning how other people deal with emotions? What's the core specific message that you're trying to get across to your reader?
For growing into greatness, it is about perseverance. It is about following your heart, even when others around you, even the ones that you would expect to support you, don't. And you still have to stay true to yourself, because you're the only one at the end of the day that is walking in your shoes, and you have to do what's right for you. So it's kind of this message of giving every person who reads it permission to follow their own dreams and follow their own passion. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy or without downfalls or boulders or anything like that, but it is permission. And sometimes I think as women, we wait for that permission to be granted before we actually tackle it. We let fear, we let, obligations and all the other things come in and crowd our lives. But if we aren't really invested in one little bit for ourselves, that's where we lose ourselves. It's not being a mother, it's not being a wife, it's not being, an employee or a business owner or anything like that. It's just the compilation of everything that comes together and crowds out our true desires. So
That's
for me,
fantastic.
that's a big thing.
Absolutely. Here at Fictionary, we all love to persevere with our books. And sometimes we feel like we need permission to write, don't we? Or
Yeah.
permission to get it ready, or permission to publish. When in actual fact, we should just chase us. So it's the message, the
Yes.
deep, that's what we hopefully will all resonate with us. Oh, it's so powerful. I love it so much. Right. Um, Right, the writing process. Let's get to the bits that we really love talking about. We've talked about all the stuff there. So let's get down to the really exciting bit. Can you tell us your writing process for growing into greatness?
So for growing into greatness, the story was in my head for a lot of years. So that's helpful for sure. Um, but I am a very, like, I like to be very organized as a writer. And I have tried throughout the years to create my own system. I've searched for systems. You know, I'm very type A, so my friend likes to call type B plus. But it's very, I like to know what I have to do. And I've spent years studying craft, and I could always, I could get it theoretically, but taking it from the theoretical into the reality, into a manuscript, was incredibly hard. And so I've been writing intuitively for years. And with Growing into Greatness, I started with Fictionary. And that was the game changer for me because my type A brain loved it. And if you do the work, you get the result. And it's like, I literally had the editing book, because that was the one that was available at the time, right beside me the whole time. And anytime I came up against a question, I would go back to the book and go, okay, what does that mean? And what do I have to do? I read through all your examples and everything like that. And then I would write the scene. And that was the other shift. I used to write chapter by chapter. And I used to have 2 or 3 scenes in a chapter. I had great transitions and everything like that because I was writing chapter to chapter. But when I did Fictionary, I shifted to scene by scene, but those scenes got stronger because they had to hit those marks. And so all of a sudden, all the things that I kind of knew from studying craft and practicing and just writing novels cemented into a process. And I took it as an outlining program to begin with instead of an editing program. So I used it as a complete outline, and I outlined it and then I wrote it. And then along the way, Scrivener lost some things, so I started writing in Fictionary.
Yes,
So
bring it on.
I was like, yeah, you don't get any second chances if you lose my work, right? So, and I did. I wrote the whole thing in Fictionary, and I checked all the boxes, and it was having that visual checklist of, okay, is there an object? Is there, getting all the senses in is a big one. I think I naturally do that, but there are some scenes where you go, oh, nobody sees, hears, feels anything here. And so having that checkbox allowed me to reevaluate it on a microscopic level and then put it all together.
Wow, it's a
That's how it kind
fantastic
of worked.
process, really. I don't think I could say much else. But I can say is this is the first time that you've managed 2 books in a year.
Yes,
Could
it's
it be
faster.
related?
It absolutely is, because it is faster. It is so much faster. Yeah, I
Oh,
love
that's
that.
so exciting. That's so exciting. I can't wait for Christina to watch this. Um, right. So we've talked about all the good things, and you did mention that you did lose a bit of work. Are there any other
Yes.
challenges that you encountered during your writing process, and how did you overcome them?
So the only challenge that I can come up with that I that I actually experienced was, at one point during writing, I realized that the primary wine of the time and the region was Zinfandel, red Zinfandel. So we're used to, like, we'll have like white Zinfandel or rosé Zinfandel, which is actually just a byproduct of the excess that didn't come out the first batch. So they were just making more money because Zinfandel actually didn't rise in price much over the years. But I realized as I'm writing, I've never had a red Zinfandel. And so I sent my husband to the store. That was the biggest challenge. And he came back with a red Zinfandel, and I was like, oh, I'd already written the description of it. I'm like, I nailed it. I got that.
Yeah.
Okay. But I needed to know for sure.
You see,
So
unfortunately, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's already been written because I could write a
I
story
know.
about chocolate.
Wouldn't that be fabulous?
But that is brilliant. Your challenge of sending your lovely, wonderful, marvelous husband, who's very supportive, darling, could you
Yes.
please possibly go and get me a red Zinfandel? And then to know that you've got the description perfect, that's absolutely brilliant. And what a challenge. That's a brilliant challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look. You're very, very, very confident with the message that you want to get across in your story. And do you think that by structuring it so well, using the steps in Fictionary, that's helped convey the message more clearly?
Yes. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because you have that skeleton blurb is literally the glue. And I actually, instead of having to flip back and forth on the screens, I actually just wrote it on a post-it note and stuck it to the top of my computer. And anytime I got sort of a little bit muddled, or I started to get into the weeds, or, I'm write historical fiction, so there's lots of rabbit holes that one can go down and can take the story off track. All I kept doing was looking back at that post-it note and going, this is what is the prime premise. This is the thread of the story, and everything needs to meet back to that. And that made a big difference for me. It kept me on track, which also makes it faster.
Oh, that's brilliant news. Do you love the skeleton blurb? Because it
I
is
do.
that line
Yeah.
that just carries you through, isn't it? It's almost like a
Yeah.
zip wire. We were just at
Yeah.
Niagara, and there's a zip wire that
Oh,
you can take all the way down to the bottom. And actually thinking about it as the skeleton blurb is that zip wire, and you don't want it to be slack because you don't want to go
yeah.
silent
Yeah.
on a zip line. You want it taut, and you want to
Yes.
speed down in that one direction, don't you? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Exactly.
fantastic. Should we go on to collaboration? Because we do have Robinette here, who loves
Yes.
your editor.
Oh,
Um, uh,
fantastic editor.
I do always love it when our editors get their just rewards, and Robinette is absolutely glorious. So,
Thank you.
what was your experience with Robinette?
Oh, goodness. It's like having somebody else inside my head. It's somebody else who has the stories back. And I think that's the most important thing for an editor is that, and for authors, we as authors, we have to want our editor to have the stories back over our own, because they are going to champion the story. And it it shouldn't hurt our feelings anyway if something is off. If something's off, something's off. And you always have that veto you can do as an author. But I think when you have an editor like Robinette who champions the story, then it is a collaboration, a true collaboration. And you end up with better descriptions, better insights. And my favorite is the what we think we've written is sometimes very different than what we have actually written. And so having that voice of reason go, is that what you meant? Because it's not really sounding like that. That was, yeah, brilliant.
Absolutely superb. And Robinette, what was your experience working with Tanya?
Oh, it was great. I absolutely loved the story from day one. And I kept following through going, oh, goody, goody, goody. I'm glad she's going this way. Oh, what a brilliant way to fix that little issue, or and to bring that across. Yeah, and of course, what the time period, the historicity. I love the way you dug into where you needed it, where it made a difference, the way the characters acted, and you came back and were more subtle. And a lot of history is like slap the reader in the face, and yes, some readers like that, but I
Yes.
really liked your control over the history all the way through it. Characters were
Thank you.
marvelous. Oh yeah. Who you killed when. Oh, should I say that? Anyway, it was just a fantastic way from beginning, and from the two time periods, it was just so natural the way they flowed together. What can I say? It was a marvelous story. I loved it, and I was so glad that your story came along just when I was looking. I had a little gap in my schedule, so it was just
perfect.
like so much. So much is fit. It was a beautiful story, Tanya. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
editing it.
I'm so glad that you say that it was seamlessly woven, because that actually would have been one of the bigger challenges, was that flipping back and forth. So thank you. That I'm pretty sure that had your hand on it.
I tried, but you had it. You just needed some, as you say, the story's back. The story's back.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's so lovely hearing people talk together about a story that they've the writer and the editor work together, because you can see the joy of getting the story to where it needs to be. You've got the artistic vision, and then you've got the editor coming behind going, if you just, I'm thinking of a royal wedding where you've got the dress and you've got the author dressed up in what they're showing the world, and then you've got the person behind just, making sure that it photographs well and that there's no shadows or wrinkles in the wrong places. And I've just got that vision of the pair of you working together and seamlessly showing off this beautiful, wonderful story. It's glorious. Absolutely lovely to hear how well you worked together, and how much the story started off in a brilliant place and then has just blossomed with Robinette's beautiful care. So let's go on to book promotion and marketing. Honestly, everyone, go along to tanyaewilliamses.com website, because she's got the most marvelous website. And I was peeking through it, and she's got all the books and everything else like that she's written, quite a few books. And then promotions, they've got bundles. And we'll talk about bundles. And then after bundling, then she's got audiobooks, and we were having a quick chat about audio. So yeah, we'll do bundling first. So your shop front, talk to us about it.
So I've been interested in doing direct sales for quite a while. I love Amazon. I do. I love how easy it is to get a book and have it show up on the device. I love all of the customer service and everything like that. But I also believe, as authors, we should never necessarily put all of our eggs in one basket. And when we sell through Amazon or Kobo or Apple, they have all of our reader information. So selling direct to me always meant that I get to build that relationship. I have a little bit more, and that's what, when we write a novel, we're building relationship with readers. And that's the best part for me, is that building relationship and connecting with somebody over a good book. So for me, it took me about a year of work and an intensive course to sort of launch the store. But it has been worth the effort. And so part of that process is you take some of your books and you bundle them together so that readers can get a taste of a trilogy, or say the first 2 books in a series, or the whole entire series all together. And they can, for a less expensive cost, as well as the sort of the perk for them. And they get to go and read it all at once, which is really fun, actually. Because that they have all 3 of the trilogy, so they're reading them all together. So that's kind of how it started, is that bundling is a marketing idea. And that is what I advertise on Facebook. And it goes very well. It's a lot of fun. I find myself really interested in the testing of what works. And that's actually one of the best ways to locate who your audience is as well, is you test your way into knowing who they are and who responds to your ads. I've been testing actually the last couple of weeks for Growing into Greatness. And so you start out with a color block, and it's just a blue box is all it is, with a little bit of text. And the interactions on those blue boxes are stunning to me because Facebook is showing those testing ads to readers, and they're clicking on it, and right now they're being directed to Amazon, to the Growing into Greatness page. And so it's an interesting loop that you get to see. And then you have the demographics, primarily women, primarily over 40, and that kind of thing. And Facebook tells you all of that. So it's a really fun experiment, and you get to know who your reader is. And so then once you have everything sorted, then you start directing your readers to your own site. And then our delivery partner is BookFunnel for ebooks and audiobooks. So, but we also have print books as well.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. So you use BookFunnel in your personal shop front, but you also use Amazon. And then you were telling me about your audio book for Growing into Greatness.
I have the best narrators. They are Broadway actors, and they've done the first 2 books so far of the Hotel Hamilton series. And then when I said to them, okay, what do you think about Growing into Greatness? There's Italian in it. And they're like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And oh my goodness, like the character Nono, who is the grandfather, is just so fantastically, it sounds exactly how I would have imagined him to. It's stunning. And because they're a duo, I get both male and female voices, and Hannah Schooner does the female voice, and Giancarlo Herrera does the male voices. And they've done such a fantastic job. And they actually emailed me to say, this is our favorite of yours so far.
Well, Tanya and Robinette, that's fantastic news. That's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, favorite from your audio team as well. That is classic. Right. Next, let's go back to Robinette. How did you find the process?
Well, for me, I read through the book first, have a think about what and where I should concentrate. And then, yes, it's going back and doing pretty much what you would do when you were writing, filling in all those blanks, looking for places where maybe it's a little thin on the senses, or maybe there's a little confusion, or, from one part to the next, there's a disconnect. But again, in Tanya's book, it was just so exciting. It was so tightly woven, actually, that it took me a little while to figure out, all right, now how I see a disconnect, or I see a moment that could be smoothed more. Pardon. How exactly should I suggest? Because there are so many ways. Pardon here.
That's the
allergy
thing.
season. Sorry about that.
It's a long allergy season this year.
Yes, indeed it is. It is. So yes, it was just a more poorly put together book would be easier to fix. But here's the point. It was down to the little degrees of how could we just up this a little bit, because it's already up here. How can we make it just a little? And it was, again, it was a joy to read, a joy to work with. A little bit of a challenge. It was like, okay, these are so tight. Sorry. But again, just so much fun filling in the blanks and finding the pieces that, we didn't have the as much of the AI at the time. But how do I say it? It just finding those tiny little moments. And there were just so many beautiful moments. So yes, I tried to go some nitpicking even, where I wouldn't maybe normally have said that to someone else, but yours was just so well done that it was, oh, these tiny little pieces pick up or don't, because you've already got a great story.
So I
So
think what Robinette's saying about suggestions is where the artistry comes from a human editor to help with editing, is the fact that we'll come and we won't just go, oh, here's an idea. You actually have to think about the whole of the story. And then, like Tanya said, there's the veto, the authorial voice going yes or no. But when you get someone that you connect with and collaborate well with, you know, the intention is to get that story to the next level. So
Yes.
you're open to any of the advice because you trust that the system that it's built on, the Fictionary way, is everyone's looking for all the structural issues, and maybe the suggestion opens up a new avenue that you haven't seen before, and it isn't quite what was said by the editor, but it is in that direction, so that you feel the collaboration working together instead of, I don't know why they said that. You know, you can go back to which element it belongs to and then go and start unpicking and figuring it out for yourself. That's fantastic. And then, Tanya, what was the most beneficial part of the editing process?
You know, I think actually having Robinette with me and understanding the movement of the story and the purpose of the story. And I actually really like the nitpicking because I want to get it as good as I possibly can. And I want it to hit the mark. And it's, again, it's just that having that story's back and having that it's all about getting the best story possible. And, you know, stories don't expire, so they live on for years and years, hopefully. And it just, you want to do as good of a job, as thorough of a job as you can. And like Robinette was saying, if you send a draft that isn't up to snuff, your editor has to work really, really hard to just fix up just the basics. But if you give them something so much stronger where you're trying to hit all the marks, hence Fictionary, you hit all the marks, then the editor has to dig deeper into the story. And that just creates a better product at the end of the day.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, let's go back to Growing into Greatness at this moment in time is a standalone novel. And I know that because in your website it says standalone novels and
That's
you've
right.
got series. But I've heard, perhaps on the grapevine, first pun of the day, that this might actually turn into a series. So, how do you find stand alone? And do you, in the end, decide that actually, I think I like a series, and then you find a story and then go, how do I turn this into a series? Is that the way your mind works, or is it that your readers are asking for that?
I actually decide before I start. So I started Growing into Greatness knowing it was going to be a series, but knowing it was going to be a standalone series, so that each novel in the series will have its own characters, its own location, and the only common thread between all the books in the series is that they take place on a vineyard or around wine. And the reason I did that, you'll probably
Open series
laugh.
based on
I know,
setting.
I totally, I have the book, I haven't read it yet. I still have like, 10 days or so to do that. The interesting thing is that I have a series called the Hotel Hamilton series, and I purposely started that as a series, intent to carry it from 1927 to a predetermined date that keeps on changing. And what I discovered was, as well received as the Hotel Hamilton novels are, I actually enjoy writing standalones far more. So I like that there's less research involved in the Hamilton, because if they're in the same year for a couple of years, there's technology and society and things like that are fairly constant in a 5-year time period. But it's a lot more challenging for me to figure out what the same characters' growth will be as they go through the series and as they go from one novel to the next without repeating myself. And that has been the biggest challenge, hence why I need to read that book. But even with all that said, even the Smith family trilogy, I wrote those each as individual standalone stories. So you could pick up one and read it, and you'd get a complete story. There's never this where you have to read the next one to find out what happens.
Yes, readers do like to have their story goal for that one particular book answered, and they can have things hanging for maybe a series, but they can't have that individual story carry on into a new book. The readers do tend to go, but I wanted to know about this story in this book, whereas they can have a series carry them over. But yes, so obviously natural intuition there, Tanya, that you've always had, which is amazing. Right. So the reviews of Growing into Greatness, there's loads of exclamation marks, everyone. So if anybody wants to look at what kind of reviews they'll be wanting for their books, go and have a read of Tanya's reviews. They're fantastic. And once you've read her book, please do write a review, because reviews mean so much.
Please.
They mean so much to all of us writers, and we are all writers here in Fictionary, and kindness is critical. So if we can just remember that. Okay, 2 books in 1 year, and you're thinking of more vineyard setting based in the series. Have you got any plans to maybe up it to 3 books a year?
Not yet.
I love it.
But mostly because I think that I sort of taken like I was trying to take July and August off. But my editor for the Hotel Hamilton series worked really, really quickly. And so I was working on that in between. But I kind of think that creatively I need a block of time to just let things percolate. Although I am itching to get going on the next one, because she's really, really strong character. And interestingly enough, this one, I've always started all of them with a setting. And this one I've started with a character who announced herself the night of the launch for Growing into Greatness. And I can give you the gist of what she said. And she basically gave me a line, which I won't tell you because it's the first line in the novel and it's really, really, really good. But then she says, "You can call me Meg." And I'm like, okay, Meg, I'm a little scared of you. But I'm sure this is going to be a lot of fun. So
you can call me Meg. That is absolutely fabulous when they don't just talk to you, but they kind of like, they charm you. It's wonderful, because if they're charming you, then they're going to be charming the readership, aren't they?
I hope so. I really hope so.
How many tissues is this story going to have?
I don't know. I tend to write ones that require tissues. I should have invested in Kleenex. That would have been a good idea. But I'm not sure, because right now she seems very fiery, and she's kind of telling her story from where she is now to the past and how other people have gotten it all wrong. So I'm not really sure. And I have no idea where it's located, which is really interesting. I usually always know the location. So I'm still researching how and where
Meg,
she
where
came to
are
be.
you, Meg?
Well, I'm kind of thinking it might be Oregon, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah.
Have you asked her if it's a cider orchard, a hard cider orchard?
Oh, there you go. I could ask her that. Yeah, I never thought to, because she seems like a bootlegger to me.
Oh, gin factory, yeah.
So it's like, I need you to be associated with the vineyards, so somehow we've got to negotiate.
Well, they can make vodka from grape juice, don't they? So yeah, so you could
can they? I don't know. Oh, really? Oh, I will look into that. Thank you.
Yeah.
May have just saved it.
Fantastic. So yeah, so lots and lots of research and all of that, which is very exciting.
It's fun.
And do you know the time period if you don't know the location?
It'll be during Prohibition for sure. So so what's interesting is different states had different prohibition. So like Washington and Oregon's prohibition started in 1916 instead of 1920. So I've got some leeway there, but nationwide prohibition ended in, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, the garbage trucks are coming. It ended in 1933 across the United States. So it's kind of in that ballpark. And we'll see. Yeah, I'm not really sure, because I don't think they'll all deal with prohibition, but this one seems to be, she's on the edges of the law. I can feel that. She
Well,
might
hopefully
have
you won't be doing research there.
yeah, there's a lot to research there with women and bootlegging is a fascinating journey. So yeah, it'll be really interesting. And ironically, I'm actually in Canada. And so what's funny is in British Columbia, we had prohibition for about a year and a half and thought it was a bad idea and voted it out. So
we were just in Ontario, and they had a strike on for the LCBO because yes, so it's alcohol across, and that's is different rules for everywhere, I think. So yeah,
it's all provincially done in Canada, so everybody has their own governing body. Alberta is actually one of the ones that is probably the loosest, and so for like Napa Valley wineries, they can ship their wine to Alberta, but that's it. They can't ship it anywhere else in Canada.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Sadly. Right. So I popped into the chat your website, which is Tanya ewilliams.com, and Ardith has just written, love your website, very well done. Easy to navigate. It is a beautiful website, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. Okay, right, so if anybody has any questions, please do pop them into the notes. It's been wonderful chatting with you, Tanya. It's been wonderful hearing Robinette's part of adding to the greatness of growing into greatness, and it's always so wonderful to hear how Fictionary has helped writers blossom and write 2 books a year instead of 1, which is always great news.
It definitely helps the backlist.
It's brilliant. And I will be seeing you all very, very soon. If anybody wants to talk to Robinette about doing a edit, please do contact me and we can get it all set up for you. And it's been wonderful chatting to you, Tanya. Good luck with the and if you could pop any pictures of your book launch into the community, we'd all really love that. And thank you again so much for coming along and talking about your book. Okay, right.